All right, so we got Honey down here in Texas. There's a lot of foolery going on, but I live down here and it's fucking Honey. That's just you gotta get used to it, Honey. If you ain't used to foolishness, then don't come to Texas. So, all right, I really want to hear y'all opinion about this. So, have y'all ever heard of Grizzly Pines?
Child, I just heard about Grizzly Pines, and
I've heard about it.
and I
Oh,
and I think that's the tea you about to spill.
yes, child. So Pines is a private gay campground in Texas. It is facing like a backlash across the LGBT community, particularly from the bear community. Do y'all know what the bear community is so I can explain it?
Absolutely, girl. I was a cub pre-transition. Stop playing in my goddamn face, girl. Honey, when I was on Grindr, girl,
Uh,
you could find me under the bear label as well as the trans one, honey.
Period. So if you don't know what a bear is I don't. When I think of bear, I think of like a hairy body type. It's a particularly. This is what they say that it is. The bear
Okay, I
community.
can I can break it down because
Let me see if this is a legit one. This is the legit.
okay, okay, go
The
ahead.
legit that you can expound on it. The bear community is known for embracing all body types, older men, and these kind of groups are often marginalized by the mainstream gay culture because the stereotypically the gay culture can be real superficial about looks and body and da 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 da. And so it's about all body types and older men. And so is that legit?
Yeah, that is absolutely legitimate. And I definitely appreciate that answer because now socially, the bear community has been expounded upon. And, like, for example, I'm a part of the bear community and I'm not gay nor male. I'm a chaser. I'm attracted to bears. And by saying that you're a bear as a male, as a man who is sexually fluid, sexually diverse, and or gay, honey, saying that you're a bear does say that you accept all body types, but it originally started as a community of and
Harry,
chubby and or hairy
older.
gay men.
Yes. So Grizzly Pines, they have a campground and they're getting the backlash because they have reaffirmed and then deleted a post about a policy banning gay trans men from their property. And the controversy has prompted a conversation about exclusion, transphobia, and who gets to define the community of the LGBT spaces traditionally rooted in body positivity and inclusion. So this campground has been condemned after on Monday they released this statement that said this campground was created as a haven specifically for men who historically lacked spaces where they could express themselves openly without outside judgment, even from the broader LGBTQ community. We're not anti trans, we're just focused on preserving the unique subculture dynamic, the venue, and this is what the venue posted. So they're saying that we want it to be just cisgender men, and we're not saying that we're anti-trans. We're saying we're not anti-trans. We just wanted to just be cisgender men. We already have seen this before. We know cisgender women have fought to have cisgender only spaces. We have seen this on that side, and now we're seeing it in the gay men side, saying that hey, we are not trans inclusive. We want trans men. If y'all want to do a space somewhere else, but at our space, no, 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 no. So this is in Texas, and there's tons of people who are having events at this particular campground because it's big, it is beautiful, blah, 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 blah. But the Houston Bears, which is an organization that is serving, the bear community, the Houston Bears said that they are cutting ties with Grizzly Pine because they feel the idea of having an event where we would be forced to tell some of our members that not you can be included is incompatible with our values. They say they are not fucking with this. They have blocked the plans. They want to be trans men inclusive, and they saying fuck y'all. They're not the only ones. There are other groups that are closing out their contract with them, so they are losing money because they're not being trans inclusive in the situation. So what I want to know from y'all, now mind you, this is like a party where they have at the campgrounds, and they want this little space to be only cisgender men. So what I want to know from y'all is, what do y'all think about this scenario? Do y'all think that we need to make room for cisgender men having their own spaces, cisgender gay men having their own spaces that does not include trans men? Or do you think this is just transphobia and they don't need a space that just includes cisgender gay men? What are y'all thoughts on that?
This is not just a predominantly gay campground. It is also part of the kink community. It's clothing optional. A lot of their parties do essentially exploit the sexuality of gay men, normalizes fetishization and things like that. Just to add more context, no judgment. Um, Wow, I think they need to be shut down. I think they've shown their true colors. Um, Regardless of who came up with this idea, the fact that it went through all the channels and Grizzly Pines was willing to host a literal anti-trans event um is nuts to me. For there to be an LGBTQ space that not only admits that trans people aren't welcome, but advertises itself as trans people not being welcome is disgusting. It makes my stomach hurt. There are spaces for cisgender gay men. There are spaces for cisgender gay men in the kink community because ain't shit you could tell me at the end of the day it's about genitals. They wanted a sausage party. They don't want no vagina there. When they were talking about people being uncomfortable, they were talking about their sexual kink settings and how some people are uncomfortable with there being people who may have a vagina in the room, or there being people who they may not be sure what's between their legs in the room. And I think that that's people dealing with their own internalized homophobia. I think that's people dealing with their own internalized shame around their sexuality. Um, and again, I think that Grizzly Pines, the fact that it went through the channels, they've shown their true colors. They're transphobic. I think they should be shut down because this is only a slippery slope. I mean, you could use the same motherfucking excuse that they used in their letter to have an all-white bear event. Trans people as a whole, we're such a small community. And only in the past couple of decades have we even started to come out into the light and even be addressed publicly in mainstream media. For a lot of us, we are not only still navigating our transness, but we're navigating our sexualities as well. And for you to keep us out of these types of spaces is trash to you. I know at many bear events, there are cisgender women who are welcome. You know that you come into a bear event, you know it's not likely nobody here is going to want to fuck you, but if you want to come, you can come. It's on you. Have fun. And I always thought that that's what LGBTQ promoted.
What's your thoughts, Jay?
I see a lot of the parallels with the Michigan Women's Music Festival that used to happen. I went to school in Madison, Wisconsin, so that's next to Michigan. So, and it was also a very like white lesbian hub kind of place. You know what I mean? Like at one point, it was like the chancellor, the dean of students, all these folks in women's studies, all at the Ani DeFranco concert near campus type shit. Like in real life. Like I'm not even being hyperbolic. Like I mean not hyperbolic, but exaggerating rather. Like for real. You know what I'm saying? So like shit like that. But I say that to say I knew people that went to Michigan Women's Music Festival every year, right? And it was like a big thing that people would like pack like intergenerational there's space for black women there. That's even though it's mostly a white woman thing. Let me be clear. But you know, women of color have some space, blah 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 blah, and it has all this history. And then folks started Camp Trans because they were excluding trans women from the space. They weren't excluding trans men from the space and trans masculine folks, but they were excluding trans women. And so folks started to protest. Eventually, that led to that event not existing anymore. Like, period. The reaction to it, to me, I just see a lot of parallels, but I don't think this would happen in the same way because we're talking about cisgender men and that population is different. But there's a lot of fucking parallels. Like, do I think people should? I think there's a way to do both, and I think there's a way to be like, we're gonna center why we started this space, and that's always going to be the center. And yes, trans men can be in the space, but we're gonna center why we started this space, how we started the space, because both spaces are started by people, regardless of the fact that they white, that were on the margins in real fucking life and experiencing that marginalization within the community. Like, there's a reason it exists, right? So I don't think you should be banning trans dudes, but I also think like you can if you like, you know, you have that right. But I think there's a way to like maintain the institution, and there's a reason why trans men who are bears want to participate in the institution, right? Because it is what it is, right? The same reason why a lot of trans women wanted to go to Michigan Women's Music Festival. They wanted to go to Michigan Women's Music Festival. They weren't up there like, we trying to change the whole format of this shit. And neither are these trans guys. And so, you know, I think there's just like often just like just a kind of hyper reactionary on both ends of the situation. And then it becomes kind of difficult to have a conversation, which is the people just want to go have a fucking good time at the shit that you already have. The people sometimes having the conversation ain't trying to go. Like, you know, when it moves, when that conversation kind of blows up. And so, you know, then you end up with a situation where trans women, cis women, neither one can go to Women's Music Festival now. Don't exist. And it was going on for what, 40, 50 years. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I think there's a lesson to be learned from that experience. And yeah, because a lot of shit lies in nuance, and a lot of the culture online, because we've been gaslit on the internet, is this hyper reaction, and there's not a lot of space for nuance. And most shit exists in gray. Like, most shit is just gonna have to like, you're gonna have to like tease it out, and we're gonna have to communicate and have a conversation about what that means. But I don't know. Those are some of my initial thoughts, because it is, you know, like, they don't want to go because they're trying to change the space. And yeah, I just think that's important. Like, I just saying that's an important factor, right? Is like, they're not going to be like, we trying to make this a trans space. Like, they're going because they like the space currently as it is, and also want to participate in the current culture of the space. Now, that's going to incorporate us, right? Now, let me say this. I'm not saying you don't incorporate, like, you know, create space for trans people, just like there's space for Black women at the music festival. That shit was still what the fuck it was. Not saying that's not problematic, but I'm just saying the vibe of the space is, my point is, the vibe of the space is the vibe of the space, whether it's trans men or cis men. Nobody's trying to change the vibe of the space, because folks want to participate in orgies. Folks want to participate in blah, blah, blah. Folks want to go to Steamworks when they have the trans man night. Folks want to have the I'm going on queer as folk experience. That's what the fuck people want. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, literally, like, that's why they're trying to go.
Yes, your intention may not be meant to change the space, but how do you navigate that when your physical presence, your presence as a trans person, is just innately going to change the space, especially when they're talking about comfort and discomfort of the cisgender people in the space. And so, how it may not be your intention, but the impact is still there. And so, how do you navigate that?
We know that our presence as trans people does change spaces, and being somebody who is trans attracted, not only am I trans, but I'm trans attracted, and I predominantly dated other trans people, blah, 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 blah. I can imagine that there is some fear, you know, on the cis on the cis male bear's part. In reality, I am noticing a lot of bears and a lot of guys who are popular in the bear community becoming trans attracted, having trans man partners. And I know that realistically, when a trans man is in the room, for me, it's going to change the vibe. At a sex party, at an orgy, in any sexual context, it's going to change the vibe because it's a different vibe. Just like trans women change the vibe for a lot of people, it's a different vibe. We are not the norm. When you are attracted to people like us and come across people like us, since you don't always come across people like us, we're going to get your attention, whether you're sexually attracted to us or not. But if you are sexually attracted to us, that's a whole different conversation. Long story short, trans men change the vibe. I can imagine there being bears that are scared because there are other bears who are realizing their appreciation for trans men, realizing their appreciation for trans masculine individuals, and honestly, getting over their vagophobia and realizing their appreciation for vaginas. And it scares people who already feel inadequate.
There's always the option to just create another space too. Like I don't. That's why I was kind of like sitting in the nuance of it. Like, yeah, you both and like you can either you got some options. You can create a fucking another space with people who are like, I'm about that life, and like to me that makes sense. Or if you sit in your nuance of the situation, be like, this is the trend. Like, I don't know, but like you also always have the option to be like, you don't have to change your institution. We can create something new, right? And I think that's always a good option to explore when there are people who are like, I'm about that. Like Bree said, like there's definitely, even within the last like 5 years, way more kind of assimilation or integration of trans men in spaces with cis gay men, like in cis gay man culture, in a way that it wasn't even when I first came on the show. Like drastically changed, like drastically. And so, and way more openness, to your point, Bree, around people being coupled with folks who are trans men or trans masculine folks, in a way that just wasn't happening before. It's still a minority, but it definitely is more like, it's more normal today, particularly for white gay men who are cisgender, to know somebody that has dated a trans guy or had sex with a trans man. Like, period. It just is. I don't know if I think depending on where you live regionally, for black folks, that's that can be the same thing, depending on where you live. But other places, maybe not. Like I live in white land, so but but yeah, so those are some of my thoughts. Like, I think I don't like the idea that the knee jerk is to be like, change your shit up. Like, no, you can do some other shit. Like, it's a thing for a thing. You like it because it's a thing. You like it because it's that institution. Start something fucking similar. Like, that is always on the table as well.
If you want to be at if you wanted to be at Grizzly Pines and you didn't want trans men in your cabin, you had a sausage only cabin, that is your business. But for you to make a whole event that's anti-trans is a huge thing because again, Diamond asked in the beginning, should cis men have these spaces? Cis people are always going to create these spaces, just like trans people are always going to create these spaces, just like any marginalized group are going to create these spaces. Why wouldn't the majority group have the opportunity to create these spaces? That we live in their spaces. That's
I
why
just
we
want
have
to
to create
push
our.
back a little though, because they're not creating the spaces because they're cis people. They're creating the spaces because they're marginalized people. Because we weren't talking about trans people when these spaces were created like that. And
I was
so,
getting
yeah,
there.
I don't know.
I was getting there full circle. What I was saying was that, trans people, any marginalized group has to create these spaces because the cis space we live in, y'all are the majority. We live in your world. That's why we have to create our own spaces. When you go out in the world, it is fit and designed for you, cisgender people. You will always have your space and opportunity.
So wait. So I want to read somebody's response as a rebuttal to that. Not my rebuttal, but before I read that, I want to talk about something. When I was younger, as a young fledgling trans woman, I would be running the streets and going to places that I was not supposed to be going as a teen, as a trans teen. And one of those places, I in this moment, I was not trying to go there. I just so happened to be in the car with some butch queens, and they wanted to go to our local bathhouse. I did not want to go there. So I wanted to be very clear. I was a very problematic young trans woman with a very, very uninclusive mentality about many things. And so I did not want to be in the face with all these agates. I did not want to be in that space because I'm a woman and women don't go to these spaces. And so, but because I was in the car with them and they wanted to go, I was kind of, I don't want to say forced, but they were like, "Hey, come on, let's go hit the bathhouse up first and then we'll go blah 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 blah." But what they didn't know and what I didn't know is when we went in there, the clerks before you come in, they say, "Oh, sweetie, it's no women allowed in here." And my friend said, "Oh, she's a trans woman. She cool." And they was like, "No, she's a woman and we don't allow women here." This is only men. And so if you want to be acknowledged, are you a man? I said no. And they said, "This is the men's only space, so you are not allowed in here." And I say, "Oh, okay." I didn't want to be in this motherfucker anyway. So all right, I'm about to get up out of here and I'll just meet y'all somewhere else or whatever. And so they gagged because they were about to get into this exciting and get overhyped. I'm like, "Oh, that's discrimination." And I was telling him, "No, don't go there. This ain't discrimination. I don't want to be here. So don't go. Do not fight this battle that I don't want you to fight for me." I do not want to be at the bathhouse. Stop playing. I didn't know, I never had been to a bathhouse. So there was a curiosity of what happens in a bathhouse, but I didn't need to be here. So I'm about to go. Don't fight that battle. But there was this moment where I was like, "Oh, I could have thought it was discrimination, but I didn't feel like it was discrimination, child. I don't want to be in there." So I wanted to say that, but this is somebody's response about this show. This is a gay man. Not about the show, about this incident. He says, "I'm sorry, but biological gay men deserve their own spaces, just like straight women now get their own spaces. We've already had gay bars taken away from us by screaming and obnoxious drunk cis women. Now we have to be concerned about losing our gay men's nudist camps too. That is not cool."
Well, see, just like what you said about the bathhouse, it'll be a different thing if you started being exclusive. If you started being exclusive to cis men, if you started being exclusive to cis women, and that goes back to what I said, this world is designed for cisgender people, not for trans people, right? But if Grizzly Pines had already been trans inclusionary, and now you want to have this event where you're like, "Nope, not this one." Again, a lot of the organizations have severed ties with Grizzly Pines because they're going against their own members. They are excluding their own members. Like, that doesn't make sense. A bathhouse ain't going to exclude no male, no trans woman members, because you're not even going to be able to become a member as a trans woman. And as soon as they realize you transitioning, you going to get kicked the fuck up out of that.
Wait. I think it goes back to what Jay said earlier. There's a way that they have done things. Let me give you an example. I recently saw a video with this gay boy saying he loves, there's one night in the week where this bathhouse allows trans women to come in on that Wednesday or on that Tuesday. They said, "No, we want to include you, but there's some days that are just for the cis boys. So what we've done to be inclusive, we have a particular day that you can come and it includes the trans women." And so I think what Jay said earlier is, what is the problem with saying, "Hey, I think as an organization for Grizzly Pine to say, no, we're not including trans men at all, that's weird. But what if they said, just for the comfort of everybody, we want this event to be everybody included, but this event is just cisgender people, and then even another day that this is just transgender people, transgender bears, or whatever. You create these moments where it is specifically catered to each individual, so when somebody is comfortable, they can choose to be a part of whatever day or whatever event that is either inclusive or not inclusive. What is particularly wrong with that if they create that space? Now, if you're just saying the whole camp is not inclusive, I think that's a problem. But just saying, hey, the caveat that we're making is we want one day to be fully inclusive and one day to not to be exclusive, because there are some people that are just not comfortable or just don't want that kind of openness in the moment that they want to go to this camp. What is the problem with creating a space like that where it's kind of compartmentalized? What is the problem with that?
I think it gets problematic because essentially they didn't start this way. Apparently, it became an uproar and it made it through the queer news cycle because a lot of people were offended. Apparently, they offended a large part of their base, and a large part of what their base stands for. And it was very socially unaware, and it comes off very selfish, and we can't help but link it to everything else that's been going on socially that's been influenced by this administration.
Agree with that's like somebody saying, well, you can't have this black women space. Like, you have to let white women in it. Like, because that's not fair. And now you're being this, like, there's a reason, like, cis gay people are marginalized people. Like, for some reason, I think because of the lightning speed of LGBT rights particularly over the last 10 to 15 years, like much faster than black folks, as we know, right? Like in the last 20 years, a reality that I think most of us did not think we would see develop, right? Marriage, healthcare for trans people, like none of that stuff was even on the fucking radar as a reality prior to maybe like 2010. You know what I'm saying? So like, I think sometimes that skews it. And I'm not saying you're doing this, but I think sometimes there's this like, people forget, like the reason people think people are gay is because of their gender expression. It's not because they sleep with the same people. It's their gender. So folks are navigating gender shit every fucking day. Cis men having space to be like, we're going to be intimate with each other and talk about our bodies. No, most cis men don't experience that, especially if they gay. I'm sure they got bullied just like the two of you did, right? So like, you know what I mean? Like there's a reason why these spaces are created, and they still are necessary, regardless if it's cis people. Like it's still, to me, it's still like, I don't want to like be like it's not necessary because everybody's cis. Like, no, it's still a necessary space that's needed for parts of that community. Just like we were saying, like, well, then, maybe have it, we're gonna have some days where it's a blended space exclusively for trans guys, what have you. But there's still a need for that because this was created by people on the margins within the situation, just like with Michigan, right? Like it wasn't folks, and still today, as we all know, like cis gay people ain't out here just everything's fucking perfect. Like I know I had to figure some shit out as a cis assumed gay person around gender shit, how to navigate work, friends, everything, discrimination, right? So
but they're more privileged though. They're more privileged than trans men though.
Oh no! Oh no! I'm not saying. Hold up. Me saying that they're marginalized and need to have space is not me not saying that they're more privileged than trans men at all. That to me is a different thing when we're talking about the privilege. Since people got rich point blank, period. All I'm saying is that them having these spaces, when these spaces were created, before we even had some vocabulary that we have today, we talking like this ain't what I don't know the Grizzly space, but I know Michigan was created a long ass time ago, right? And so if both of these spaces are spaces that were created in like 1970, 1980, and trans people just came on the radar as like a regular thing to talk about in the last fucking 10, 15 years, Come on, y'all. Like, let's, that's what I'm saying. We got to be able to talk about it and talk through it. That's why when you said, Diamond, I like what you were saying too about like a blended space, right? Like Steamworks is gay. You can take your trans ass up there any day, but you'll probably have a better situation if you come on the day that's for the trans people, right? You can come anytime. They got a night for trans guys specifically, right? And those who like them, right? So like that's a real, like, it just is a weird territory. Because I remember we used to have caucus spaces. Well, why can't the white people come into the people of color space? It's the same thing. Like, folks still need what they need. And it doesn't, just because they have privilege doesn't mean they're not marginalized. That's like saying cis black people ain't marginalized. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, all black people. Trayvon Martin was cis. Michael Brown was cis.
Jay, honey,
You know what I'm saying? George Floyd was cis. You know what I'm saying? So like, I don't want to jump to like, just because you cis, that means everything is perfect. Because it's not, even though you have cisgender privilege. You know, I don't know. Just putting that out there. Because then also you got the people that will turn around and say over all three of us, well, you all can move as cis assumed people in a lot of spaces. So therefore, your life ain't problematic at all as a trans person. Which I've heard that kind of rhetoric out here. You know, so like it gets a little weird.
But I'm not trying to. That's not true though. If in my mind, I'm not. If somebody said that to me, yes, I just went and got my ID and nobody clocked me, and I got my F on my ID. I got all of these things. So yes, there's ways that I can try. I just went out of the country without worrying about coming in. I do have a privilege in that, but I'm also not trying to create space where it's just passive trans women and you clocky girls stay over there. I'm not trying to create a space that does not include them. I'm trying to be inclusive. So I don't know why somebody would say that to me, but I'm not like that.
I'm just saying like
the
argument a little bit can get a little weird around just the fact that, like, I understand we're talking about the space, but I'm not like I said, I'm not privileged over here. Cis people privilege over here. Do these people need space? Yes. Is there room in the middle? I think so. This is me, LJ, talking. I believe so. And I know that oftentimes there's a lot of folks that can kind of be like, well, the cis people, blah, 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 blah. And living out here where I live on the West Coast, I have definitely heard from other trans people and queer people be like, oh, you cis assume, if you can be cis assume, so situate, like, you have no problems. How dare you even fucking talk about anything trans? Like, so because, you know, and it's like, that's not how it works in real life, as you said, and all I'm saying is, for people that are cis who are clockable as a homosexual, they're clockable because of their gender too. They're navigating gender shit as well, is all I'm saying. It's not the same.
Jay, honey, Diamond said it in a nice way, but honestly, honey, you lost me about 10 minutes ago. Honey, I don't know what you're talking about, and to me it sounds like you don't really know what you're talking about. It sounds like you're making an argument about something that ain't even really this topic to me. Again, I could be just lost and confused.
It was a side point for sure. Definitely
I feel like you definitely went on a tangent and confused the fuck out of me, and I'm sure the fuck out of the listeners. And in that tangent, what I did here was honestly some making excuses for cisgender people. Honestly, again, I will repeat. They are the majority. Trans people are less than 1%, arguably 1%. Trans gay men are a very small minority. I'm aware, honey. It's not that serious to be kicking trans men out of those spaces. It's discriminatory, bottom of the line. Again, the bear community specifically and Grizzly Pines is supposed to stand for the margin within the margin. It's supposed to be for people assigned male at birth, people who are masculine presenting, regardless of your body type. That's why they allow chasers in. That's why they allow people who didn't fit any of those. You could be feminine presenting and still be allowed at these events and welcome at these events because it is about exclusivity. Many of the people that are involved in the bear community are actually drag queens and gender nonconforming individuals.
Let me say this before we close this part. There have been many situations that we have talked about on this show, many because we have been around for many, many years now. And so I remember Jay talking about a situation where Jay was trying to get into a club that was only, that said they were exclusive to women. And Jay felt uncomfortable because, yo, I am a trans man and I feel
Women
like
and non-binary people.
yes. So I'm a trans man coming into space and y'all are making these assumptions about me and I am the way you described it at the time, I am a safe person. I am used to being in these spaces because I am genderqueer and I have been in lesbian spaces all my life. And now that I have transitioned to be this genderqueer person, are literally excluding me. And that was an uncomfortable moment that he described in that situation. I remember cisgender women in the reproductive justice conversation saying that they wanted cisgender women only spaces because they thought, I don't know why they thought this, that the trans women was going to come to these spaces. And I'm like, what? We're not even birthing people. And we were talking about trans men being included in the space about reproductive justice to be trans inclusive. But because of the erasure of trans men in the conversation, because they're so damn obsessed with trans women that they don't even think about trans men that
Yep.
who are actually affected by reproductive justice. And so it would
Exactly.
make sense for them to be in the conversation about reproductive justice, that they were really adamant about creating a cis women only space. And so these are the moments where we gotta have those kind of gray area conversation that Jay was talking about. These are the moments where we gotta have some type of nuance. It is not hard for us to have these conversations and not be super reactionary on both sides about what we're talking about and coming up with solutions. Because what will happen, and I think Jay brought up that festival was a beautiful moment because people are so angry on both sides about the situation that it literally led to the ending of a beautiful space. So instead of people trying to work it out and figure something out that can be safe for
100.
everybody,
Right.
instead of figuring it out, we let the motherfucker die. And that should not. Now we created the space because we fucking was marginalized. And now we to let the motherfucker die because we couldn't figure it out. And isn't that the analogy? Isn't that a metaphor for what we are trying to get cis het people to do? Figure this shit out because it's other people out here other than you. And so we should be able to live in this space and live in this world, figuring it out about through our differences. So if we can't do that shit as queer people, how the fuck are we going to be able to expect the outside community to do that shit? That is the point of this conversation for me, because that was a perfect example. Our
That's
spaces
all this fussing and fighting.
right. Our spaces do not need to die because we are trying to figure out how can we be safe for everybody involved. We need to figure that out. We need to have those difficult conversations and figure out solutions. And I think that we can do that. We have to be that example.
A possible solution, I think. I mean, we already know how to navigate these diverse spaces as U.S. citizens. You know, when you have the event, when you host the event, you let it be known word of mouth that we're not really checking for trans guys here. Don't if you do it publicly, you know, and you put a stamp of approval on it and tell people that they ain't welcome, that it's never going to look good for you. But if you let it be known and you let the event be promoted in such a way where we're censoring cisgender guys, like Jay said, and that be the end of it, trans guys are eventually going to realize that that ain't the space for them. That's not the space where they're prioritized and uplifted. That's one way I think possible to do it. Maybe people think it's shady. I don't know. I personally think that it's smart, and that's the way we've been navigating these diverse spaces.
I'm
Everybody's welcome at a mosque, but eventually Christians going to realize that ain't the space for them.
I think what you mentioned, Diamond, like that space out here, right? Where it was like, we are centering in this space lesbians and non-binary people. They didn't say which, like they didn't say anything about what you're assigned at birth as a non-binary person or what your gender expression should look like as a non-binary person. They said this space is exclusively for lesbians and non-binary people. And when we did talk about that, my friend who is not a trans man, right? It doesn't, you know what I mean? It is like, being read a certain kind of way was, extra like patriarchal in the space, right? And hyper masculine problematic in the space, right? And I just looked like this, right? And it was assumed, right, before I could get through the door, all these things when they end up having the interaction they thought they was gonna have with me, with my homie, and we're cool, but like, so like that is a thing. Yeah, I just wanted to, because that's the fussing and fighting is the plan of distraction. So we're not focused on the shit, and it's definitely in the footsteps of a colonizer type of mindset. Just like these white folks were in the streets in the 60s talking about it was the summer of love, and then they went back to their business. Just like they was in the street in 2020, tore a whole bunch of shit down, institutions that we need right now to be fighting that don't exist no more, and now they back to their shit. So so let's not, we got points of reference to not do that as us,
So yes, let us know what y'all think about the Grizzly Pines situation. How do y'all feel about it? What are y'all thoughts? What's the tea? Hashtag Marsha's Plate.
Hashtag MARSHASPLACE.
The best way to support is to engage with the content. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Another way to support, if you got a couple of dollars, become a patron.